Welcome to Answers Unleashed, a talk show to help you reshape your brain with science and faith to find the answers in front of you. How many times have you sat in front of a TV and been caught by a wonderful storyline and you're watching it and you just think, wow, just think of that TV show. And you go days and days and days and remembering that storyline. Well, there's people that put that together, and there's people that create that transforms the way that you think. Well, today on Answers Unleashed, we're going to talk about how you can be that creative person in the TV world. How do you become a TV producer? Now, on this show, Answers Unleashed, we talk about several different things on how to re-look at situations so you can find the answers in front of you. Now, we also have our newest Einsteins. There's individuals that come on the show that have found a breakthrough way or breakthrough method to create things in a new way that is helping other people as well as helping themselves. Now, if you have ever wanted to create a TV show, wanted to transform your own stories so people can understand the power and the message of them, well, you're in tune for a great show today. Today we have a guest with us, Jonathan Perkins, and he is such a dear friend, and I'm so happy he is here with us. He is who I call a newest Einstein. He has found a way to break into the TV production world using a different business model, and we're going to talk about that, but he's going to give all of us tips. And if you are a person out there who is looking for a way to create great shows on TV, well, he's going to give us tips for that. And let me share a little bit about his background. Now, as an executive TV producer, Jonathan Perkins graduated with a double majors in marketing and entrepreneurship from Colorado State University, and he attended the Act One executive program, and he has worked at Alcon Entertainment and DreamWorks Animation before becoming a partner at Hoplite Entertainment and functions as their chief creative officer. Now, his works are great. It has been in feature films, narrative, and unscripted TV. He wears several different variety of hats as producer, writer, director, showrunner, and he has created and run the industry workshops here in Los Angeles at the CBS studios that's designed to teach and equip people in the entertainment industry. And I am so happy he is here today.
Thank you for having me.
Jonathan Perkins.
Thank you.
How do you have your friends call you?
Normally, things that I can't say on the radio.
Now, I am really fascinated by what you do. You have you found a way to use and leverage your background in your marketing and business and actually apply a new model to the TV world. And you're a TV producer. You have done several shows, and just there's several shows not only airing here in the United States, but they're airing across the country. Just share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this goes into a longer conversation, but traditional TV is done by going to one of the networks here in the United States. Most people in Los Angeles are very familiar with the model of going to one of the networks here and trying to pitch their idea and seeing if it's going to get bought, if it's of interest. And if it is, they'll go ahead and they'll put it into production. They'll maybe bring you on as a producer, creative, or having you help in some sort of way. But then they make it, they own it, and then they sell the rights to it. So they air it here in the United States, and then they go internationally and they sell it. TV content, film content, media content in general is sold in such a way where you sell the rights to view it in a territory. There's some 200 territories across the globe, and so the United States is just one of those territories. What my company does and why it's a little bit unorthodox the way we do it is we're making our content in the traditional film model, and so we find investors. We basically incur the risk on our own and make the content without necessarily having a place to sell it just yet. And so we risk it, and then we go and we turn around and we sell it not just to the United States, but to territories worldwide.
Now, that's fascinating. Now you use the film model. The film model, and let's break that a little bit down more for our audience so they can understand how you actually use that process of that film model and transpose it on a completely new platform, which is TV.
Yeah, so how the film model has kind of worked in the last couple of decades is that people will go and find an investor and they will work together with them, but the investor will put up the money and they will make the film and then go and sell the rights to it. They've basically incurred the risk of that, put together the film, and now they go and sell the rights. Nowhere or very rarely does it happen where people come without seeing the idea or the project or anything and just pay money to make it. Unless you're at the studio level, that's when you get into that. But the studio model has been working for years, but they kind of have their own way of doing it. How this has evolved is actually related to technology. The way the industry started, having the equipment necessary to make a project was cost prohibitive. A camera was hundreds of thousands of dollars. The studio space, the actors, everything that was needed was so expensive. And so if you wanted to make a production, you had to go with one of the studios in order to do it because you didn't have the means to do so. Well, over the last decades and the last several years, like the ability to make a production, the cost of that technology has come down significantly. There was this movie called Tangerine that did very well at Sundance last year, and it was filmed on 3 iPhone 5Ss. The technology to create that film is in your pocket right now.
That's
Actually,
encouraging.
many people probably have a better phone than that now, but that's what it did. And so basically it allowed more people the ability to create their own projects. And that just happened in the film model because it was a one-off project that's 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it was, of creating a project. And so people were able to do that on their own without having to go and invest in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment in order to do it. TV is slowly coming that way. TV has not yet fully transferred over, and why people are very immersed in the traditional model of it right now or using the studios is because TV is still cost prohibitive for many people to do. It's going to take, depending if you're a narrative or unscripted, obviously what the project is, it's going to take millions of dollars in order to do a season of that, and then you obviously have to go in and market it and all that expense. In the recent years, why this has become accessible to other people is we've come into this time of seeing unscripted TV. Most people call it reality TV. It's a huge misnomer.
You mean reality TV
Reality
is like
TV.
not who we think it is?
Yeah, so I like to call it unscripted. I think that's a better term for it. But anyway, unscripted TV is not as expensive as narrative television is. So the ability for people to do it has now been widespread, and now that's more of the area that my company we've been effective in is working in the unscripted model. But using the term I'm talking about here or the traditional kind of the film financing models, we'll go and find an investor. We'll put together a project on our own, relying on our own sense of story and what we think will sell, and going for it. And then we go and we turn around and we sell it and we go to the market and see if it's going to get sold and see if people are going to be into it. And that's a little bit nerve-wracking at the same time because it does definitely test our ability and test what we think is good story, and that puts the responsibility back on us, and it's played off well so far.
Well, you bring up a good point, story. The word story, and it means a significant transformation in your eyes. And what I love about your background is that you were not originally planning to go into TV. You had a different background at first. You graduated with a business degree, correctly?
Right.
And then you went actually to work as a youth pastor at church, and that's where you realized the story, what transforms people.
I think story has always been something that transforms people, and it doesn't even have to get into a religious lens or not, but you take a look at as people, as humans, whether it's cavemen sitting around a campfire and telling stories, whether it was hieroglyphics written on pyramids, you can see evidence that story has always been there. And story is this vehicle that has just created the basic way for transferring entertainment, but also education, information. Think of parables or sayings or anecdotes or anything like that those all come in this wrapper of story, and that's what makes them so unforgettable. That's how they have transcended. Before people were able to write things down, before the printing press, before being able to record things, much more of it was just remembering this story, something that was impactful on a person's life. They remembered how important story was. So that's the key of the entertainment business, is tapping into good storytelling. Through my background, I was focused on the business side of things. I kind of had a left turn right after college and worked at a church. The Bible is just a huge storybook. I mean, there's a lot of stories that come right out of the Bible and are great stories. Jesus was one that was a huge storyteller himself. He spoke mostly in parables. He would tell stories.
And also, I really enjoyed about hearing your background about when you work with kids. Now, you were working with kids, and if I remember this correctly, you would tell them the storyline of whatever passage it was, and they would remember it somewhat. But what they realized is the connection. And when they had that quality time, that quality one-on-one time, that's when the stories became real in their brain. And how was that transformation, and what was that aha moment for you to recognize that you can actually use that experience to bring it to the TV world?
I think it was a frustration one in trying to convey information and just seeing these blank looks on faces and people not tuning into what I was saying, and then really trying to come up with something of like, all right, I'll tell a story instead, or tell a joke or something. And it was the times of really getting into telling a story, telling something personal, where people would start to pay attention. And I've noticed that these days, whether you're watching a movie or a TV show, or you're listening to someone speak, when a person goes in and tells a little bit about something that they've done, their background, what happened when the first time they got grounded, the first time they got fired from a job, there's something that's kind of interesting about that. You hear it and you're like, I kind of actually want to hear what this story is, because I can relate with that. I can see what happens. And I think that's the core of storytelling, and where you have to figure out is you have to make it relatable for the audience. You have to find these common denominators that transcend the information you're given and have some sort of relevance or interest in your audience's life. And so they do this in film all the time. One of the great examples that was used is this film Die Hard. If you remember it, it's basically Bruce Willis. He's trapped in a building. He's against these terrorists. Not many people understand what it's like to go against terrorists personally in their lives.
Thank God we don't know that. We leave it to the professionals.
Yeah, but what he is doing is, it's also this story of him trying to hold on to this marriage with his wife and repair that. And people understand that. They understand like a romantic connection, when it's like to have romance and holding on to that in their life. And so what they've done brilliantly in that film is kind of woven both of those stories together. And that's the trick to film, is finding something that's relatable to the audience, and whatever else is going on in the story, whether it's aliens invading Earth, finding something that's applicable to a person's life that gets them kind of in tune with it.
Well, you have a beautiful storyline in one of your TV shows with airplanes.
So last year I did this show called Wrecking Plan, and it is there's up in Victorville area, there is basically an airplane graveyard. And so when companies are done with their airplanes, let's say Delta is done flying their Boeing 767, whatever it is, they'll sell it off, and these companies will come together, they'll buy it, and then they basically tear them down, and they're recycled there. There was a group of guys that I was fortunate to meet, 6 of them. 5 of them had basically felony backgrounds. And oddly enough, the 6th one was a former sheriff. And so it was kind of a funny dynamic between them. And after getting to know them a little bit, having a felony in your background makes it very difficult in order to get a job. It makes it very difficult just to function in society, because now you kind of have this pockmark on your life, and people are very hesitant to give you any sort of opportunities. So these guys worked at this place called the Wrecking Pad, and these planes were here. And so the interesting thing about this show is we see these huge planes come in, and they're dismantled by these huge earth-moving machines. And so a plane is like ripped off of an airplane, or a wing is ripped off of an airplane. Yeah. Big sound effects.
Well, now I am curious. What did it sound like?
It was great because we would sit there and it was kind of like this anticipation moment where you would see these big earth movers chewing through a wing or biting the tail off of a plane. And you knew it was like this anticipation. At some moment, gravity is going to win and going to tear this thing down. And you could feel it. There is like thousands of pounds come crashing and hitting this big cement pad. And it would just be kind of this like little mini seismic activity that hits this concrete pad. Smoke, dust goes everywhere, and everyone kind of sits there looking for a moment like, that was awesome. It's kids playing in a sandbox and like destroying things on a exponentially bigger level. And that's what's really cool about this show is you see these things being torn apart. And there's a part of you that kind of wants to play, like, I want to get in this big machine and tear these things down. That would be a lot of fun. So anyway, what goes on in this show is we're tearing these planes apart. And that's what I knew was going on. And I was trying to figure out, how do I make this show more than just seeing these planes being torn apart? That's interesting, but I don't know that that's going to get us 13 episodes of interesting. How are people going to come back week to week and really tune into it
and watch it over and over and over again years later? That's
the challenge, because it's just people may not relate with that. It might be fun, might be eye candy to kind of see that, but how do I find something they relate to?
And this takes it back to the story element.
Exactly. So in finding something relatable, you have to go to character. You have to go to people, because we're people. We relate to other people. We see other people deal with things, and that gives us a sense of relatability. Maybe if we're going through something similar, but at least we understand when we see other people going through something, we can relate because we're at least people as well. So I was trying to figure out, how do I maximize the storyline? How do I really turn this into something that is appealing and people will tune into? So what goes on in this, the day-to-day of what this show is these planes come in, the aluminum gets recycled, the avionics get pulled out and get refurbished, the tires get pulled off and get sold to the city of Long Beach to put on like tugboats. Very little of the plane is actually thrown away. The majority of it is recycled. And I thought that was very interesting. But then I saw that this other parallel storyline was occurring, and that these guys that were former felons that had these backgrounds that made it very difficult for them to get opportunities in their lives, society had almost thrown them away. But this wrecking pad in recycling these airplanes was not only recycling the airplanes, it was also recycling the lives of these guys. And so one of the guys was trying to get a new house. One of the guys was having a new kid. There were just these little storylines that these guys trying to make it in life. Something that we can relate with. Everyone can relate with that.
Everyone can.
I want a job. I want a new house. I want a family. That's relatable to everyone. Destroying a plane, maybe not relatable to a lot of people, but that's something unique that you get to see in the show. However, the struggles, the things they're going for, their motivations and what they're doing is something that's relatable. And so we kind of tied in both of those storylines in telling that show.
Now, telling that show and telling that story and making that parallel is brilliant. And it's brilliant specifically because everyone on the face of the planet always has to, at one point in time in their life, have to reinvent themselves. There are times in which they come across different obstacles and there's different barriers, and they have to think outside of the box, if you will, to figure out what are they going to do next. How are they going to get to this next point when the opportunities do not necessarily seem available to them at that very moment? So we all go through that. It doesn't matter if it's people who are wrecking airplanes and it doesn't matter if you're an executive or a CEO of a major company. Every single person in life has to find some way to go through barriers, but it takes time to do that. Now, in the TV world, 10 years, you say?
That I've moved out here in 2005, so I've been in it about 11 years now.
11 years. But you specifically have this theory, 10-year time mark. 10-year time mark is the time frame.
Yeah, the 10-year overnight success.
Tell us more about that.
I think, especially with the entertainment industry, you'll see people that kind of crop up out of nowhere and like, oh, I haven't seen this actor, I haven't seen this person before. And it's just because now they're notable for some project that they've done. But you haven't seen all of the work that they've put in over the last however many years it was
Years
in order to
sometimes.
get to that point. And so it's, it is bad to think that, oh, you just come out to Hollywood, you come out to the entertainment industry, and it just happens overnight. I mean, if that happens, it's a lottery ticket. You have the same odds as going playing the lottery if you want that to happen. But I think in anything in life, the more you work at something, the more diligent you become and disciplined you become at doing it, it helps refine you. You find different ways of doing it. You find ways that didn't work. You find ways that did work. I love, there's the story of Edison when he's coming up with a light bulb and someone says, oh, you failed 999 times before you found the way to make a light bulb. And he says, I didn't fail 999 times. I just found 999 ways not to make a light bulb. And I think that's a brilliant way of looking at it, is you just find what things work in your life, what things don't work. And exactly like you're saying, you reinvent yourself, you evolve, you come into finding new ways that are going to be more efficient or better ways of looking at things. So yeah, it's been, I mean, I'm still at a point now where I'm really trying to hustle, really trying to push and get these projects out the door. And it takes a while. I mean, it takes a while to build, and it takes a while to come up with the ideas and the processes and the teams of putting all of these things together. Wrecking Plan, for example, we filmed that in August of 2015, and now it's just started airing on A&E in Australia. It's 2016, over a year later. It just takes a while for that stuff to happen. And that's just the first place that we sold it to. And so there's still several more territories to go. Hopefully people will see the show and they'll like it and it'll start to spread a little bit more. But it just takes a while for these things to happen. And that talks about when we were in production. There were several months of pre-production, figuring out the plan, what was going to happen with that. It's just a long process.
Oh, I can speak specifically about that to my life. People know me before as launching rockets, but I had to reinvent myself. And it was so fascinating because there was a point in time where I had to literally sit down and figure out what is it that I want to do on the face of this planet. If I'm not going to necessarily be in the mission control room, what is it that I want to do? And for me, and I can only speak for myself, so audience, know that when you hear this story, if it relates to you, then you know the meaning. For me, what happened is that I had to figure out what is it that I always wanted to do. And for me, I always wanted to share with people how they could think differently and how they could do that. And I thought, what's the best way to do that? So obviously thinking of being a public speaker was the first way that came to my mind. But I did not know the process that it was going to take to actually build that up. I didn't know the amount of time that would take to figure out the message. What's the platform? What is it that I want to share? And tons of people were speakers out there. But what is it what I specifically was an expert at that I could share? What was my own experience? Then you had to create the website. Then you had to create the market, figuring out who would be interested even listening to your message. And then once you have that, finding out the people who could get you out there in a way in which would target all the people who would need to hear what it is that you offer. And it took probably a good 5 to 6 years of solid working before the opportunity of the TED Talk came. And most people do not know that when people do a TED Talk, and specifically a TEDx Talk, when the TEDx Talk is made, there's thousands of TEDx Talks that's made. But the question is, how is yours relatable to the audience? And for those of you that follow me and know that I do the reprogramming your brain to overcome fear, that was relatable to everyone. Everyone has that process of finding out what they were going to do to figure out how they were going to remove fear from their life. So now you have this opportunity to tell every single person who wants to go into this world of TV production, what are, let's say, 7 different things that could help remove their fear. You laugh as I say this. 7 different things to help to remove their fear, so they know that it's okay to reinvent themselves. They will come across certain challenges. And what are some different things that just comes to the top of your head right now that would help the next Who's the next brilliant filmmaker, do you think, out there? The next brilliant filmmaker and TV maker out there, what do you say?
First of all, I like that there's 7 different things to help people out. Just such an arbitrary number. It's not 1, it's not 100.
It came off the top of my head.
Yeah, so 7 different things on giving people. Let's start off with the top. Let's say story trumps. Story is great. If you understand story, if you're able to convey something and get it through to your audience, that's the core. That is the number one thing you have to figure out in the entertainment business. Figure out good storytelling. That's going to be a part of it. This kind of relates with that. Number 2 is going to be seeing, validating if your story is good or not. I've had people come to me and say, I got a project that's never been done before. And that is actually a bad thing for people to say to me, because it's not just show, it's show business. And business looks at, how are we going to make money on this? And how can I see that this will make money? And so if someone says, I got something that's never been done before, that means there is no track record to validate that it could possibly make money. That's a risky investment. And so if you're looking at a way of trying to be successful and finding a way to get your projects done, pick something that has a track record of success. And so that kind of goes in with it, is good storytelling, but look at something that has been validated, has done well in the past.
And improve it, maybe.
And improve it. Yeah, there's the cliche, give me the same but different. That's a studio executive saying, I want the same but different. Number 3, and this is actually a big misnomer in the industry, is although ideas are good, value comes in the execution of the idea. The idea itself is very little. The execution of the idea is much more important to have done. So I would say really focus on the execution of the idea. That's a big part of it. All right, number 4. Going to hit 7 here. These are going to be the 7 things on how to build your career. Number 4, the entertainment industry, movies, TV, and all of that, it's not a single venture. It takes a village. And so you have to surround yourself with great people that see the vision and about finding a way to work together in an effective way in order to get the project done. Number 5.
I love what you're saying here.
Pick projects that are more attainable, that are more within your grasp. Use your assets in order to tell the project, not your liabilities. I had someone yesterday come to me, a no-name writer, meaning they haven't written a script in their life, and they wanted to make a $100 million film. A $100 million film, there's only the studios that really do that. And that means there's 5 people that can say no to your project, and that's it. And if you made a $100,000 film, a $10,000 film, whatever it is, if you made something smaller, you have many more people that could say, yes, we'll get on board with that. It's starting to go on hikes and saying the first thing I'm going to do is climb Everest. So make it much more attainable. All right, we're going on to number 6 here. It is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so you have to realize everyone's fastest right out of the gate, but where the challenge comes is being able to run with endurance and keep that pace up in mile 20 and mile 25. Getting through to the finish line is just such a big part of the process. Don't burn yourself out. Find a way to make it attainable through what you're doing at the very end.
And I love your 7th one, the industry workshops.
The industry workshops. That's the 7th key you need. So I didn't go to an organized film school. I'm very much the type that learns by doing. And so I started asking people out there, how do you do this? How do you write a script? How do you fund a project? How do you put this stuff together? How do you frame? How do you do technical side? Whatever this is. For me, I wanted to find people that had notoriety of doing it. So I looked at their IMDb's, their resumes to make sure, hey, you're actually working. You're not just an academic. Your application. And so I started reaching out to these people and asking them questions. And I realized, actually, this could kind of be beneficial, I think, for a lot of people. That's how the industry workshops was created. So there are these 3-hour workshops on Saturday mornings at CBS Radford Studios we bring in someone from the industry. They talk about their area of expertise and give very application-oriented techniques in order to take your project to the next level, whether that's film, whether that's TV, just something that you need to know, very application focused, and get you through to the next level. That's this. Let me add an eighth one.
You want eight?
Eight.
It's a good number. It's a money number.
I'm just going to put this on top of it. Enjoy the process. You have to look at finding a way to enjoy what you're doing while you're doing it, because that is really where a lot of the value is going to come, and you're going to be working on one of these things for a long time. And if it's a detriment to you, if it's a chore for you, it's going to show. It's going to reflect to your team. It's going to reflect in the work. There's something that comes through with a project that is, it's giving it life. It's giving it a soul because of the creativity within it. And if you don't remain passionate, if you don't remain loving your project, if you are not adamant about telling that story and why it needs to be told, it's going to show, and it's just going to be the kiss of death on that project.
Well, there you have it. You have found out the tips to succeed in not only your line of work, but specifically the TV industry. Now, how do people find out more about you and they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way to do it is actually to go to the Industry Workshops website. It's theindustryworkshops.com. There's a whole list of upcoming workshops that are on there, and hopefully that gives people these little pieces they can in order to get to the next level. It's also one where if people want to, there's a certain part of the industry they're looking to find out about, there's a contact page on there. Send some info in and what you're looking to learn or looking to connect with, or there's even places on there where we're staffing up crew jobs. When I hear about a job, or other people in the community hear about a job, it's, hey, I need a sound engineer, I need a DP, I need whatever it is. They're on the website there, so it's supposed to help people out.
That's perfect. Well, there you have it. If one thing you take home with you today, it's this. You always have the ability to tell your story. And the question is, which way will you do it? Until next time, find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Olympia LePoint. You can always go to our website, answersunleashed.com. Call us at 888-88-ANSWERS and ask us what's on your mind. And I am here to help you reshape your brain with science and faith to find the answers in front of you. I am Olympia LePoint. Thank you for tuning in to kpcradio.com. And this is Answers Unleashed.